in here just so it doesn't sound as loud.
Check.
Okay, I'll turn it.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Corbett and Ms. Jones, for being here, and anyone that's with us right now on Facebook Live. Thank you for joining us for this presentation by the Grosse Pointe Park Public Safety Department. We have Officer Thomas and Detective Ryan that are going to speak to pretty much cyber, social media, safety, and the children were just in here and had very good conversation with the officer and detective with some scenarios that they asked about. So I'm going to pass it off to Detective Wilmer.
Okay, hello. Thought there'd be some more people here. I didn't realize there was kind of a live stream going on here. So we've already talked to some of the students and teachers regarding school violence, social media, bullying, threats, and what type of ramifications can happen by specifically using social media for a threat or bullying. And one of the things that I was kind of going through was that making the threat is one in itself a crime, but using a computer is another crime in itself. So now you have two crimes that has been committed. So if a child goes on there and says that he wants to shoot somebody or he's going to kill somebody or something along those lines, he has committed two crimes by using the computer. And maybe some things to look at the parents, our first line, obviously, of where we find out the information is when somebody reports it to us. And the first people that are going to hear that is either parents, teachers, or principals, or other kids telling other kids, and then somebody eventually telling an adult. So, by the time it already gets to us, it's already kind of gone through a couple of places. And the one thing we want parents and teachers to, specifically parents, to just, monitor social media is some of the best things that you can do. And it's hard. And I know and Officer Tom has his kid, he has 3 kids, and, he knows, and I have a stepdaughter, and it's hard to monitor what they are. But for their safety, we don't know who is on that computer, who they're talking to. They can tell you one thing and be talking to somebody else. And, they can be friends with somebody on there, and it's mostly their school friends. But then you may have like a group of friends that's on this, friends on, meaning online, that they'll have, a group of friends. And maybe 8 of them, we'll say 10 friends, and 8 of them that they know, like, hey, these are all my friends. But then there's somebody else with some different usernames on there that they don't know, but they've been chatting with. And one of their actual friends says, hey, I've been chatting with this person's been fine, and then they become friends with him. That's the kind of stuff that you want to look at, because you don't know that person. That's where something kind of comes in, where it's like, who specifically is this? Go on their, look at their friends on their social media and stuff, and then, being nosy. It's not being an overbearing parent, but you want to protect your children too. And that goes kind of along the lines with, looking for signs too, with the school threats and the Oxford shooting and everything that, everything is under a magnifying glass, which is a good thing because it's opened our eyes to kind of look at things that, maybe prevented something. And that's one of the things you kind of want to look at is like, hey, are my kids maybe acting a little irregular? Are they hiding something? Are they kind of out of the norm? Or they made some weird statements or anything like that to kind of look at so that something can be prevented. And that's where you can bring it up to the school. You can bring it up to a therapist, or if the police need to be involved, if there's some type of threat. Any type of threat that comes to the police department, we don't go by like the policies of what the school does. We go by the law. And by that, I mean, we take everything serious and we investigate it as far as we can, and then, we will give that case to the prosecutors, and they will eventually decide on what to do with it. So it's everybody kind of being on the same page, paying attention to different types of behaviors, making sure that they're talking to their friends that they actually know in person, and not just, some weird usernames or some fake Facebook profiles. And a lot of these kids make their fake Facebook pages and social media pages, but it's just, it all kind of, it starts at the house, especially with social media. Everything starts at the house, and you're connected. You're safe at home, but you're also, talking to people from wherever, and you don't know who you're talking to. So, that's kind of like what we're getting at here is for, just, it starts with the parents and it starts with the schools to really, pay attention to emotional leakages. If that makes sense, emotional leakages like changes in behaviors and stuff like that, or your son's getting bullied and reporting that, or your daughter or whatever.
The social media is a big thing nowadays. And, like Detective Ryan said, I have 3 kids, and a lot of similar ages these. I have an 8th grader, a 7th grader, and I have a 3rd grader. So that's who we kind of talk today. And I'm very familiar with the social media aspect of it. Like the TikToks they're on, the Snapchats they're on, the gaming systems they're on. And that's where we're like, just as parents, that we have to be aware of what kids are talking to, who they're talking to, what they're saying, what they're posting. Because again, once you say something and once you post something, like it's on there forever. Like there's ways for us to receive information, to get information. People take pictures of stuff. They snap pictures. They share that amongst other people. So it's very dangerous. Like when people are on the internet, it's like posting stuff on there. So like Detective Ryan said, as parents, it's kind of like your job to monitor that situation. Be nosy. They're not adults yet. Be nosy. Don't be afraid to see exactly what they're doing down there. Just monitor their accounts. To take a look every once in a while at what they're posting on TikTok or Snapchat. And honestly, if something's not right, say something right away. Like you have to. That's where you got. It comes as being a parent. Unfortunately, you got to step in right away and, take that next step of doing what's right. Right. Like just remind them that social media is just full of like unrealistic images. You see these things on social media that it's not reality. That's not life. People just filters and all different stuff people create that make their lives look like their luxury lives. And then that's where kids kind of get hung up. Just the thing with teens or kids is they have like impulsive natures of they say stuff, they necessarily don't mean it, but they say stuff. And unfortunately, the world we're in now is once you post something, once you say something, right, there's if it's real or not real, doesn't matter if it's realistic or non-realistic, once you say something, there's consequences. We told the kids today, we kind of went through them, like communicating like a terrorist threat, like a school shooting. Like there's no, I didn't mean that, I meant that, it doesn't matter. Once you communicate something like that, the way what we do is we receive the information, we submit it to the prosecutor, and at that time, they make a choice of if they're going to charge. And that could be a 20-year felony. So there are major consequences with stuff like that. There's harassment charges we talk about the kids. There's all this stuff. These are crimes that these kids are committing. So that's why it's on parents to monitor their social media and take charge of, know exactly what they're doing.
And that's what we try to explain to the kids. You have this impulse of, they're growing, and so they want to get something out of their system. And it's different, if you're at home and you yell something, but if you put that online, now everybody can see it and it doesn't go away, which makes it, way worse because these other people seeing it may not know if, he meant it or not. And the law doesn't care if they meant it or not. And trying to explain to them, think before you put something on there because there are consequences specifically of, possibly being charged with a crime. Think before you put it on there. Yeah,
just for the people here and the people at home or at work, the officer and the detective, we went over some scenarios, like the children raised their hand and shared some of the things that they've been involved in social media. And I did ask the question, how many parents have looked at your social media? And almost everyone raised their hand. So that was, very positive that, they know that and they shared times when they went to their parents for help. So the presentation was about what could happen if you go the wrong route, but a lot of it was like, we know it's mostly for good that we use this, but there's this outlier stuff that goes on that needs to be addressed, and you need to be aware of the consequences. With the little people in grade 3, 4, they talked about roadblock, discourse, like the games that they play, and how there's like filters and roadblock. We learned a little ourselves from them. They were very engaged. Older children listened a lot, and once they got to sharing stories, then there was more involvement about what they're actually going through. Some help prevent somebody from, getting in trouble on the internet, and the others shared people asking for their social security numbers, which, they addressed, in their personal information, and how they went to their parents about it. So, it really was very good, the presentations to our children today, I think. And I'm very glad you're here. I wish more parents could have been present, but I'm glad that we have it recorded so it can be viewed later, so you kind of got an idea of what was discussed here. Parents here, do you have questions?
So just to offer a few points as a prosecutor, that one thing I would say, these guys are talking about the idea that something is presented to the prosecutor and then it's kind of out of your hands. And just what a prosecutor does is basically look at the facts, and then looks at the law that is required to be proven. It's almost like a recipe for something you might eat. It's to make chocolate chip cookies, you got to have flour, you got to have eggs, you got to have chocolate chips. All this, the same thing holds true with a crime. If they're looking at it from a very basic, elemental perspective as to whether or not the facts these guys are presenting satisfy all the elements that the prosecutor would have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt. That being said, even if they're able to prove a person is guilty for something, doesn't mean they're going to do it, because it might be that they think it's really not an appropriate thing to do because the circumstances don't really present it. Maybe it's a person who's got some circumstances that make their situation be inappropriate for a full prosecution. So, but what it really comes down to for a prosecutor in a situation in going after a juvenile has to do with deterrence, and whether or not the prosecutor ultimately thinks that the deterrent effect for the general community to see that a juvenile is being prosecuted for something really justifies the full prosecution in the juvenile capacity. So these guys do the upfront work, the liaison with the parents and with the school principal and the priest and all the individuals who are involved, and then thereafter the prosecutor has to make that decision. So I just think there's two layers to this. It's important to know that. The other part I was going to say, for the parents out there, I've got older kids as well as a child here, and one thing we've done is when the kids are starting to get into it is we've had a contract. We put together a contract of what the kids can or can't do, and essentially that contract says that you have no expectation of privacy on anything, and so you are always in a spot where the parents can at any point in time look at what you're doing. So that's clear, so that with their eyes wide open, they'll be able to be in a spot where they recognize that what they may be putting down, the parents could be monitoring. Now, that doesn't mean that you should be monitoring. You should be, because you've got to know what's going on, but you want your kid to develop some sense of confidence in going through the process. But a contract is helpful, and that's the lawyer in me talking.
My question is, by operation of Oxford, and are our children automatically offenders? Are they once the police are involved, is that the realm? And just full disclosure, I'm a former criminal defense attorney. So with a fifth grader and two younger children. So I just wanted to know, are we living in zero tolerance once the police are called and then it automatically goes to prosecution? And or are these children still students?
Yep, there's a couple questions in there. So, no, every time you have police contact with, every time a child or parents or you have contact with the police, this isn't like some type of like crime or track record that is following them that's gonna affect them in life. Now, if the child commits a crime, depending on what type of crime that is, we take all the facts of the case and all the evidence that we have, and we submit that to the prosecutor's office, and then they choose what they feel that individual should be charged with. Sometimes the prosecutor's office will say, no, we're not doing anything with it. Sometimes they will say, well, we're going to do this. We're going to try to, seek some type of help, do a diversion program. So there's different options, and there's, it depends on the crime. It depends on the severity of it. There's a lot of factors that go into it. But for your first part, it's like, if we can help somebody, especially a child, we're going to take that route before, we want to try to get, somebody in trouble for something. If it looks like they need help, we're going to try and go that way too. So it depends on what the crime is, and how old the child is, and and other factors. Well, yeah, we can do that, but to protect the police department's liability during whatever, depending on what type of crime it is, we will usually submit it to the prosecutor's office. We will work with the schools. Like I said, it depends on what the crime is. Like, I can't give like an exact answer to that, but if we can help, everything is different.
because of Oxford and the heightened state that we're living in, are the standards different right now?
So did Oxford change anything the way we handle a case? No. Do I think it changed the way schools started to maybe, report stuff? Absolutely it did. But that's a good thing because it opened everybody's eyes up on like, hey, we need to pay attention to things. Now the policies and procedures, those are up to the school. We handle every case the same of how we get it. Whether Oxford or not, but did the reports go up with Oxford? Absolutely it did. I mean, that was on the news and that was everywhere. And, the only thing that we're always trying to do as a police department is protect, protect everybody. So, did that answer your question? Is okay.
Thank you, officers and parents for coming. What I want to say to all the parents that perhaps today you have the opportunity to speak with your child at home about what the officers have shared with the students. That could be a platform for the conversation around bullying, cyber threats, and many other things that sometimes students do because it's funny, it's something, or a revenge, or whatever that is. That parents have the opportunity to speak with their students and say there are consequences, what we put out there, sending a text, sending email, posting on the website, posting on Facebook, whatever media people use, consequences of that. And I think that's what we try to do today, that if I'm bringing a gun to the school, if I'm saying I'm going to kill you, that is consequences of this. Yes, and that's, we, the school, and we, the students, need to, we, the parents, need to be aware of this. And because sometimes we think, oh, maybe nothing is going to happen. And the things will get its own role. And that's not to scare anybody, but to the reality that we live in post-Oxford, the reality that we live in today is a little bit different than 30, 40 years ago. Different. And we need to be aware. And that's what we bringing by officers coming here, speaking to the students, speaking to you, the parents out there, is to make us more aware of those things. And pay attention. And I would really encourage all the parents to have a conversation with child today or this week about the usage of the media, usage of the platforms that your child is on, whether it's appropriate, whether it's taking responsibility. Patrick, you mentioned something that we teach children of this. Maybe that's something that steers the conversation. Yeah. So I'm very grateful, officers. Thank you for coming to our school and to meet with the parents, to meet with our students, and may this be a fruitful conversation for the future. Amen? Thank you.